also remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel grow, and follow us on our social media platforms. We're at TheMandatory TKO. Bryan, we got to get to another topic because listen, the 140-pound division is the most exciting division in boxing. And after what we've seen at the 140-pound division, we just saw Subriel Matias take an L and get upset by Liam Paro this past weekend. Crazy weekend in boxing. Was definitely hard to watch both fights because the main events were going on at the same time. But with the Subriel Matias loss, Bryan, it kind of shifted the 140-pound division, because for a very long time, we were talking about how, and a lot of other people in boxing, how Subriel Matias was kind of the boogeyman. Loses to Liam Paro in Puerto Rico. Liam Paro boxed very well against him. And then there's that other aspect. And this is why it's kind of hard to rank the 140-pound division, in my opinion, because Ryan Garcia cheated against Devin Haney. And it's like, where do you place Devin? Where do you place Ryan? And that's why I think the 140-pound division is wide open, but it's also a mess a little bit. So let's go to, actually, we're going to see who the best is at the 140-pound division when we give you our number one ranking. I don't know if we have the same guy. I'm excited, but we should go down from 10 to 1, Bryan, on who you have. Yeah. And it's a little bit difficult. So before we get into ranking it, how do we do that with Ryan Garcia going to court soon and him cheating,
suddenly retiring?
Yeah, but him also at the same time having like the smallest amount of Ostarine. And I always talk about this, and you're rolling your eyes. Dirty supplement, because they're in supplements.
He knew what the fuck he was. I am not giving that dude any pass, any excuses. He knew what the fuck he was doing.
Okay, well, I'm curious. I just don't know how to make my list with that situation, with that happening to Devin Haney. Because
before you even do that, like, we can't. Ryan Garcia can't be on the list because he didn't even make weight.
Okay, so on the list that I made while I was driving this morning, actually, I wasn't driving. Not gonna snitch on myself.
Yeah.
I legit made this list this morning in my ride because we decided to do this because Bryan was like, should we just do the top 10? Because we were going to break down the 140-pound division. I'm like, let's do it. So I made this list off the top of my dome, and I did not place Ryan Garcia on it because he cheated. So I was like, I can't put him. So I'm not technically, but at the same time, we saw Devin lose the way that he did. And so it kind of affected my list. I'm not going to lie to you. But Bryan, let's go down from 10 to 1. Who do you have at number 10 on your 140-pound division list?
Question first. Do we want to, this may potentially spoil our list, so you can say no. Do we want to say the Ring Magazine top 10 list first? Because I found their list very curious.
Yeah, please go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. List it off.
So Ring Magazine top 10 at this weight class. I'll go from 10 to 1. 10 is still Gary Antoine Russell, who lost to Alberto Puello this past weekend. But I found it curious that he's still on the list. I was like, all right. Richardson Hitchens is 9th. Regis Prograis is 8th. Josh Taylor 7th. Subriel Matias is 6th. So we have a few guys, quite a few guys coming off losses there, and Richardson Hitchens a questionable performance.
Okay, if I'm not going to lie to you, I don't even have Hitchens on my top 10. I don't have him on my top 10. And I go by resume who you fought.
Okay.
So he's not on my top 10. I'll tell you that right now. I don't know if he's on yours, but
he's been on the Ring Magazine top 10 for
a minute.
A little more than half a year at this point. 5, Alberto Puello, who got that big win over Gary Antoine Russell. Deserved, by the way. Deserved. And as far as we know, he's clean now. So we'll give him that. 4, Jack Catterall. 3, Liam Paro. Shot all the way up to 3. Doesn't even have a picture in his profile.
Use the one that we used here at TheMandatory. I'll tell you one thing about Liam Paro. Actually, I'll save it for when we do the list.
Okay. 2 is Jose Ramirez, your boy. 1 is Devin Haney, and the champion, the Ring Magazine champion, as we know, the lineal champion, is Teofimo Lopez.
Yes. That makes sense to me. Let's get to your number 10.
Ring Magazine list. Okay, so we're gonna do 10. We're gonna go back and forth. Okay, we'll keep track. as we're going along. Maybe we'll write these out. We should probably do that. 10 was a fight for me.
Can I, before you get into it, for me, 6 through 10 was tough.
Yeah.
6 through 10, I was like, I don't know. I was writing this down at a red light. I wasn't driving. I was just like, I legit made this list like top of the dome. I made it literally maybe in a minute. But 6 through 10, I was like, I don't know. But you can tell us also why you decided to place them. So let's get started. This is our top 10 list for the 140-pound division. We're ranking it from 10 to 1 on who we think is the top 10 in this division. Number 10 for you, Bryan.
Ismael Barroso.
Okay. He's a champion. He's a champion. So I'm not mad at that.
You know why? Because listen, O'Hara Davies was like a decent sized favorite for that fight. He knocked his ass out in the first round, and he was beating Rolly Romero's ass before we saw what we saw. And I'm like, listen, I don't know how many of the top guys he can beat, but his power is ridiculous. And if you look at his peers, like a lot of other dudes are coming off of losses, multiple performances of looking bad or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, I'm at least taking a guy at 10 who is like weird to say about somebody over 40 ascending after their last couple fights. And he will lose that title at some point, whatever the case may be. But I think Ismael Barroso, for example, if I look at the Ring Magazine list, why is he behind Richardson Hitchens?
He shouldn't be.
Why is he behind Gary Antoine Russell? Given his last couple perform, he just knocked out somebody who was supposed to be the champion. It was set up. O'Hara Davies, American debut, whatever, knocked his ass out in the first round.
Yeah.
Another British fighter who comes over to the States gets knocked the fuck out. Like, Ismael Barroso deserves some respect, and he's been on a run his last couple of fights, probably even longer than that. He's 10th for me in this weight class.
I love that. I don't have him on my top 10, respectfully, going by resume, but you might laugh at who I have at number 10 right here. Number 10 is the former undisputed champ, Josh Taylor, that I have. Because he still has a Regis Prograis on his resume. He won a split decision, which I do believe it was a robbery against Jack Catterall. It's always about what you've done last. He recently just lost to Jack Catterall, and he lost to Teofimo Lopez, but Josh Taylor was undisputed in this weight class not too long ago. Last year, he was undisputed. So for me, he is still on this list. And he also, listen, I hate talking about the Jose Ramirez fight with Josh Taylor because I've seen every Jose Ramirez fight. And Jose Ramirez did not look like himself in that fight, but he still has him on his resume. So if we just go by resume itself, Josh Taylor deserves to be on this list. I think some UK fans will be mad that I have him at number 10, but he made my list. So he's number 10 for me. You're number 9, Bryan.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'll say at least Josh Taylor's on your list. Number 9, Alberto Puello. Just beat Gary Antoine Russell, won a title, and then tested dirty for something. But, and usually like with the steroid thing, you want to hold that against somebody, but he seems to be clean now. And he beat Gary Antoine Russell, who had knocked out everybody he's fought, who was one of the blue chip prospects in this weight class, and probably still is, because that was only a split decision loss. Like, it was a very close competitive fight. But Puello impressed the shit out of me in that fight. And he's more skilled than I think people realize. But I put him 9th. Ring Magazine has him higher. I put him 9th because it can't really jump him ahead of some of the other guys based off of like even recent body of work. This is one big win. And he had another nice one a couple years ago before that, but I think Puello deserves some respect on this list too.
He is my number 11. He's the guy that didn't make my list, but I had him right there, and it was just based off resume. I think there's someone on my list that you'll be like, why is he on your list? But we'll get into that. My number 9 is Jack Catterall. I don't have Jack Catterall high on my list, and I'm not mad about that. Listen, he beats Josh Taylor in his last fight. I do believe he beat Josh Taylor in his first fight, but other than that, who does he have on his list? His whole career, he's been waiting for that Josh Taylor fight. Did he perform? Yes. Have him number 9. That's all I have to say about it.
I mean, he beat Josh Taylor twice, if we're being honest.
But on his resume, if we just go by
I know
resume,
what you
like if
mean.
if I'm some nerd, so this is what I say about like basketball. If I'm some geek that's like born in 2024 and I go and look up like NBA stats and I see that LeBron James is number 1 on everything, I'm going to be like, "Wow, he's the best player of all time," because I'm some geek looking at stats online, right? Same thing if I'm looking at the resume and I see that he has Josh Taylor loss on his resume, I'm going to be like, "Okay, so he lost to Josh Taylor." Even though we all know that it was a pure robbery. So for myself, I have Jack Catterall, number 9, not being a hater, but other than Josh Taylor, who does he have on his resume? Number 8 for you, Brian.
I mean, it's a former undisputed champion who you had on your list. Look,
At number 10, at
like,
number 10. So that's why I gave Jack Catterall the number 9 spot, which I think is fair.
yeah, Jorge Linares would be the other one, but obviously we know older Jorge Linares, whatever.
Yeah. I don't think he would have beat prime Jorge Linares.
Probably
Gonna keep it
no,
real with you.
no, probably
He
not.
wouldn't have.
We haven't seen prime Jorge Linares in a while because he's been hanging around, but a lot of people forget how good that dude was.
Very
At the
good.
time he fought Lomachenko and dropped Lomachenko, which was shocking at the time it happened. Number 8 for me is Regis Prograis.
Hey, that's my number 8 as well. So we have Regis Prograis in the exact same spot.
Who we both, when we ranked this weight class, I think last year, we were both like, man, he might be number 1. You know what I'm saying? Like
And
number 2.
and
And
here's the
since
thing.
then, like
Yeah.
he you could argue he's had 2 losses. The Danielito Zorrilla fight is a fight that a lot of people thought Danielito Zorrilla won. I think some of that is probably just like everyone thinks somebody's getting robbed in this sport. It is what it is. But that was a very close. I had Regis winning by a point. So, and a couple of those rounds were swing rounds. Like I could have seen him losing that fight. He probably would have if it wasn't in New Orleans. Let's be fair. And then Devin Haney destroyed him. He would tell you Devin Haney was being a weight bully in that fight, et cetera, et cetera. The fight is the fight. It happened. So we haven't seen Regis Prograis have an impressive performance since before that, which is basically a year and a half ago against Beta, where he won the WBC title initially. So that's my reason for having him there. It's been 2 lackluster performances, like really lackluster performances.
And going back to that Zorrilla fight, I thought Regis just edged it. There was lots of talk that he went out the night before in New Orleans. Maybe that has something to do with it. But the reason why I have Regis Prograis above Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall is also because he arguably fought the best boxer at the time in Devin Haney, and Devin Haney's that good. Devin Haney is that good. We saw what Ryan Garcia did, steroids and all. But Devin Haney, undisputed at 135 pounds, moves up and makes Regis Prograis lose every round in that fight. Shook him in that fight. And so, listen, if you lose to one of the best fighters, I'm never going to be like, oh, well, you're not that great of a fighter. Regis Prograis at one point was arguably the best fighter in this 140-pound division, also a former champ. So I still have him number 8 on my list, and I'm glad we have him in the same spot. I was curious to know if you would have him on your list because of his 2 lackluster performances. But Regis Prograis, number 8 for both Brian and I.
We're going to get to this at the end because here's the thing. People might see this as disrespect. This weight class is legitimately like 20 deep.
Yes.
Like I have a lot of cuts here where I was like, fuck, man, I wanted to put him on
was
the
one of
list.
my cuts. He was one of my cuts. So it's like, it's hard to make this list. And sometimes I'm going by resume. That's what I'm essentially basing it on. And also going by your record, and who you've won against. Right.
Yeah, I'm going by a lot of this to me is just today. Like
Yes.
where like the resume matters, but also like the recent resume, especially, which is why I've said like Regis didn't have a good year last year. Didn't have a good year at all. He needs to bounce back from that. And he's somebody who's in his mid-30s. So like, I think he's going to be an underdog against a fair amount of the guys we're talking about. Yeah. And we had him on the show. It was great. One of our favorite interviews, but didn't have a great year last year, and he needs a bounce back performance, like big time. Like big time.
So you're number 7, which I think you might find mine interesting. But
I feel like we might have a similar number 7. Well, I felt that way until you said that. Now I don't think we're gonna have the same number 7.
I don't know if you have this guy on your list.
Okay, so definitely not. Mine is Subriel Matias, who just lost the title.
Okay, I have Subriel a little bit higher. He's
Oh,
on my
that's
list.
interesting. Okay.
Um,
He was 7 for me. He probably, if we made this list before his fight, he probably would have been third, I
mhm.
would have said. Yeah, third comfortably. Seventh on my list. Same thing. Like he, mowing down people and then loses the Liam Paro fight. 116, 111-ish fight, I think. Maybe a lot of people had it. For what I've seen, I saw some 115, 112s. I saw some even wider than that, but got outboxed in his hometown against Liam Paro. Good boxer. I said before the fight, why is Subriel Matias such a wide favorite? Thought he would win the fight, but didn't think he should have been minus 750. That was outrageous. And he needs a bounce back performance too, but I think he accounted better in that fight than Regis Prograis did against Devin Haney for sure.
Yeah.
And it was also one performance. One performance. It wasn't back to back. So Subriel has another lackluster performance after this. Then yeah, we're going to talk about potentially like knocking him off the list. But for now, number 7 just lost his title. We'll see what happens.
And another guy that didn't make my list, and I want to mention him, is Sandor Martin. Very,
One of
very
my
tricky
last
fighter.
cuts. One of my
Yeah.
last cuts.
And it
Yeah.
was hard to not put him on this list. And I was struggling while I was driving. I was like, how did I not put him and Pollo on this list? Right. I was like, how did I not get them on this list? But that's how tough it is. And I'm going to say this name, and you guys are going to be like, well, why is he on this list? I have Arnold Barbosa Jr. at
Yeah.
number 7 on this list. And listen, he's undefeated. He's 30-0. And people are going to look at me and be like, well, who else
29
has
and 1. They're gonna say 29 and 1.
yeah, pretty much, because his last fight was controversial, but as you know, boxing, that happens sometimes. Robberies do happen in broad daylight. Why it didn't happen in Puerto Rico this past weekend, I'm not quite sure. But the one fight that I always go back to, and I hold Jose Pedraza in a very, very high regard, and the way that Arnold Barbosa Jr. made him look in the ring, to me, was one of his best performances of his career. He hasn't lost yet. He is 33 years old, so he has to go. He has to get a big fight. Lots of talk that he's fighting Jack Catterall across the pond, which will be really, really good for Arnold Barbosa Jr. I think a very tough fight for him. But at the same time, Danielita Zorrilla, I thought he took care of him very well. And the one fight I always go back to, if we remember when Arnold was coming up on Top Rank, the guy that everyone was praising was Alex Saucedo. That was a fight that Arnold Barbosa was not supposed to win. Ended up ending Alex Saucedo's career, right? Um, so it's one of those things where I go back to that fight and I'm like, listen, he took care of Saucedo and he wasn't supposed to. And he hasn't lost yet. Does he need more names on his resume? Yes, he definitely does. But I have Arnold Barbosa Jr. at number 7 on my list. He's on the top 10 list. When we did this last year, I had him and Jose Ramirez fighting for 5th. He hasn't lost yet, technically, on the resume. Right? Very, very tricky fight against Sean McComb. Bryan, you're number 6.
This is where it really got tough because we were talking about how difficult 6 through 10 was. Um, but if we're talking about resume, and specifically at this weight class, this person for some reason wasn't even on the Ring Magazine top 10 list, which I found interesting. But 6, I have Isak Cruz. He has a
Okay.
title. He has a title at this weight class. Um, beat Rolly Romero. That's it. It's the only fight he's had at 140 so far. So, TBD. And it was also, I mean, good matchup for him, for being honest. But
Yeah.
Isak Cruz is 6. I think a lot of people would have him much higher. I was surprised that Ring Magazine didn't have him on the list at all. Like, he should be ahead of Gary Antoine Russell probably at this point, but I think they're factoring in body of work in this weight class. I was too. So I put him 6 here. And stylistically, he's a fascinating matchup for a lot of these guys. Like I've often said, like, are you sure he would beat Subriel Matias in a fight? Because Subriel, we know what type of fighter he struggles with. That's not Isak Cruz. And the same could be said for Isak Cruz. We know what type of fighter that he struggles with, and that's not Subriel Matias. They would beat the shit out of each other. So who the fuck wins that fight? But does Isak Cruz, like, is he favored in a fight against Jack Catterall? Is he
He
favored in the
should
fight
be.
against Liam Paro? Like, is he going to be able to get to those guys in the same way, or are they going to fight like Gio Cabrera and sort of give him problems with his movement, and Isaac Cruz going to be following around, following around, following around. Like, I
He's
don't
got to
know.
learn how to cut off the ring for sure, for sure. Um, I'm not mad at that. So my number 6 is Jose Ramirez. I actually didn't.
Six.
Yes,
Six. You have him. You love this dude. You have him
I know.
six?
I know.
What?
I love my Cali Mexican boxers. I have Jose Ramirez 6, and that's still pretty high on the list in my opinion. Jose Ramirez loses to Josh Taylor, and in his last fight, he got beat pretty bad. Like, he didn't get beat on the resume, but it was a fight where he took a lot of hits. He fights a dangerous style, which is what I like. He fights a true Mexican style, but I have him number 6 because I still believe that despite Subriel Matias losing to Liam Paro, he had some good moments, and I think he could have finished off Liam Paro at some points in that fight. I really do believe that. Like, he had some good runs in that fight. Maybe it was fighting in Puerto Rico. I don't know, but I still have Subriel Matias high. He had just had a title. So I'm not going to knock him down lower than top 5 for me, because at the same time he has the power. I like his fight style. So I pretty much just told you who's my number 5. It's Subriel Matias. My number 6 is Jose Ramirez. Your number 5, Bryan.
Jack Catterall.
Ooh, that's quite high.
Listen, he beat an undisputed champion twice. He beat Jorge Linares convincingly at this stage of his career. And I I like Jack Catterall more than I thought. Like, I like that he's weird. His style is
Yeah.
very quirky. His style is very unconventional, off rhythm, off beat. I like that. I find it a little bit, I don't want to say alarming, too strong of a word, but later on in fights, he tends to not push the envelope the way he should and finish the way he should. It's happened against Josh Taylor a couple of times, which is why he got robbed the first time and how some people thought he could have got robbed the second time. But he has those 2 victories, and I think he is ready for another top fight in this weight class, which I think he's going to get. It sounds like
It's Arnold.
it could be Arnold Barbosa. Arnold Barbosa tweeted the emoji. They were going back and forth. He tweeted the British emoji, British flag emoji. Don't know why I said it like that. That was an accident. Didn't mean to sound offensive. And then the plane, I think, was in that tweet as well. So if Jack Catterall fights Arnold Barbosa next, I think that's a great fight. I think Barbosa has a chance, but the problem is he would probably need to knock out Jack Catterall to win that fight.
Yeah.
If not, just destroy him. And I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. I would favor Catterall there. But Catterall's 5 for me. I think he's done enough to warrant this spot. I think he's one of the best guys in this weight class, maybe the best guy in this weight class that doesn't have a title.
Well,
Like,
I don't know if I agree with that, but I do think Jack Catterall
he
is a
should
tough
have a
fight.
title, though. He should have had a title the
Yeah,
first time, to be fair.
100%. I agree.
That's
I
what
agree with that. My number 4, because I already did my number 5. It was Subriel Matias. My number 4 is Liam Paro because he just beat
we have the
Subriel
same number
Matias.
4. We have the same number 4. This is great.
Yeah, he just beat Subriel Matias in Puerto Rico, fought him very, very well, very tough. Liam Paro went into a territory and got a win that I don't think, unless there were people on our live that were saying Liam Paro is going to beat Subriel Matias, but that is a great name to have on your resume. I love the way that he fights, Bryan. He's not scared, likes to come forward. Liam Paro to me is the 4th best fighter in this division after what we saw. You're only as good as your last fight sometimes, and I based it off him beating Subriel Matias in Puerto Rico. Number 4 for Liam Paro. So he's your number 4 as well. So I do like that.
By the way, also beat Montana Love. Beat the shit out of him,
Yeah.
knocked him out, which, that's a better win than a lot of who we're talking about, right? A lot of
Yes.
these guys don't, like Richardson Hitchens, as you can see, not on my list.
Not on mine either.
He wanted to fight Montana Love. I think he would have beaten him, but ultimately didn't get the chance. And I think Montana Love would be the best win on his resume other than Gustavo Lemos, but I don't know if he beat Gustavo Lemos. So,
No, I
like,
don't
that's
think so.
why that's why he's off the list. Gustavo Lemos, by the way, signed with Top Rank, so that makes his weight class a little bit more interesting too. We'll see what kind of fights he gets in that division. But yeah, I have Liam Paro there, and he also has the Brock Jarvis knockout not that long ago, which I read somewhere, and I don't remember the odds for this fight because I didn't bet on it, but I read somewhere that he was an underdog for that fight going into it, which I don't remember. But if that's the case and you knock out somebody in the first round as an underdog, that's not something that happens very much. So we both have Liam Paro, number 4. We're going to have 2 of the guys the same in our top 3. One guy we don't have, because you already mentioned somebody who's in my top 3, in my 3rd spot that I haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, you mentioned somebody that is in my top 3 as well. Isaac Cruz, number 3 for me, just won a title. I think he's gotten better, and I think he showed that in his last performance. Does he struggle to cut off the ring? Yes, but I think Isaac Cruz, he's a champion. You can't take that away from him, and he's fought well. And I think another part of it too, he has the star power, Isaac Cruz. Like, people ride
Yeah.
pretty hard for Pitbull Cruz, and
Hmm.
he's an exciting fighter. I like his fight style, obviously, and I just hope to see him in another big fight, whatever that may be. But Isaac Cruz, number 3 for me on my list in the
He's
140-pound division.
He's getting Rayo Valenzuela in August on the Terrence Crawford card, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Valenzuela is somebody who was one of my first cuts, but I considered him at one point. But I was like, I can't. Like, if my list is 20 deep, then he'll be there. But Isak Cruz, like, yeah, I think you can justify that. My only thing, and the reason why I didn't have him in my top 3, is I just want to see more of a body of work in this weight class. So if he beats Valenzuela, which you want to talk about a firefight. I mean, this is a potentially dangerous fight for Isak Cruz, but also a more dangerous fight probably for Valenzuela, who I think he's going to need a box to win, and we'll see if he can do that for 12 rounds against Isak Cruz. But it's a great, great, great fight. It's
Yeah.
going to be very explosive. Isak Cruz a favorite, but I don't think he's a huge favorite either. So that's a lot of fun too. We'll see.
That one's gonna be
But
a banger for sure.
it's going to be a great fight. 3 for me is Jose Ramirez.
Okay, so you had him higher. I like that. I like your list. Why do you have Jose Ramirez at number 3?
Um, Formerly unified champion, but also he looked really good against Bartholomew, who
I thought Bartholomew had some moments though.
Bartholomew is good. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was a tougher
people
fight. Like, I thought Jose Ramirez in that fight would stop him.
I didn't.
You- Okay, so you didn't. Okay, so I was kind of like
So
let down in that fight.
that's probably what it was. I bet on Ramirez to win by decision. Bartholomew's stoppage loss to Gary Antoine Russell was bullshit. It was very early. And he actually had some success in that fight before he got unfairly stopped in the 7th round. Bartholomew's a former champion. He has had great fights in, lighter weight classes, 135 in particular. And I think that was a legit win. Jose Ramirez also beat up Richard Colmay, and he beat Jose Pedraza not that long ago. The one loss to Josh Taylor that he has on his record, if not for the 2 knockdowns, it would have been a tie because of the 2-point deductions. It was a very close fight. Other than that, and I think you make the point, like, he wasn't really himself. Maybe we grant him that, but like, I think Jose Ramirez is still really good. Nerd comments and says that he's shot. I don't think he's shot. That being said, I need to see him get like a worthy opponent at this point, because I felt like he would comfortably beat Pedraza. He would beat Colmay. He would beat Bartholomew, and those are good names. Like, those are
Very good
legitimate
names.
names, former champions. But he should fight. Like, I would like to see him fight a Devin Haney soon. I would like to see him fight the Jack Catterall Arnold Barbosa winner soon. Can he fight Richardson Hitchens? Because they're both over there, fighting on the zone. Is that a fight that could be made? So, like, there's a lot there. Maybe I have him a little too high, but honestly, like, there's a body of work there. There's multiple world titles. Um, I'm not so sure that Liam Paro would just beat his ass, so I would like to see that potential fight also. If Liam Paro's first title defense is against Jose Ramirez, sign me the fuck up. That'd be a
Yeah,
great fight.
yeah, for sure. My number 2, Brian, is Devin Haney.
Same.
And we have the same number 1, Teofimo Lopez.
Yes.
Number 2, Devin Haney. No surprise there. It's hard to put Devin Haney above Teofimo Lopez at this point because of what we saw happen, even though Brian Garcia took steroids. Uh, Devin Haney, undisputed at 135 pounds. I don't think you can deny that. But the way that he lost that fight against Ryan Garcia, and granted, steroid use, I still think Teofimo Lopez has one of the best resumes in boxing, and what he did at 135 pounds was extremely impressive. And Sandor Martin was a tough fight. I know a lot of people thought maybe it could have gone to Sandor Martin, but I thought he fought that very well. And then going back to the Jermaine Ortiz fight, wasn't his fault that Jermaine Ortiz fought like that. He still won the fight.
It was like the Sandor Martin fight again, pretty much.
Yeah,
Except he looked
two good
worse
fights.
against Sandor Martin, but I thought he edged out Martin. I thought he beat Ortiz, and
Only got
he
to beat Lomachenko convincingly.
he's
You have to put that on there too.
and he Jack Catterall beat Josh Taylor twice. He didn't do it the way Teofimo Lopez did. Teofimo Lopez blew him out. Jack Catterall like beat him somewhat convincingly, right? Like it's like 7-5, 8. I gave Teofimo Lopez 9-10 rounds or something like that. Like it was ridiculous. There was a 115, 113, 102, 115, 113, which I thought was kind of crazy. Teofimo Lopez beat Josh Taylor's ass. And that was going into that fight where we were like, fuck, like, what Teofimo Lopez are we going to get? I was at that fight. What Teofimo Lopez are we going to get? Is Josh Taylor like just going to beat him or whatever? I remember thinking it's probably like Teofimo either catches him, knocks him out, or Josh Taylor probably outpoints him. But if Teofimo Lopez actually shows up, puts it all together like he could, then he could actually just outbox him. And he did the latter emphatically. He's number one in this weight class. You could argue that they may have been the case before Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, but I think if Devin Haney beats Ryan Garcia, we probably both have Devin Haney first. So we still need to
100%.
see what's up with that. But my concern with Devin Haney now is he may never be the same, because once you get rocked like that and knocked down several times and your jaw gets broken, and he might be chinny now. And you don't want to be a dude who's a counter puncher, who is not a finisher, who is chinny. So I would favor Teofimo Lopez in a fight with Devin Haney now.
I definitely would as well. And going back to Teofimo Lopez being my number one on this list, I think he has one of the best resumes in boxing. Like I said, Nakatani, Richard Comey destroyed him, beat Lomachenko convincingly. And then he has a very bad loss against George Kambosos, which a fight he did not take seriously, which is what we always have to say when mentioning that fight. Moves up to 140 pounds and has impressed. What he did to Josh Taylor, he embarrassed Josh Taylor in that ring. Everyone was talking about how great Josh Taylor was until Teofimo Lopez fought him. And that's why, to me, he's number one. Devin Haney, obviously undisputed at 135 pounds. He destroyed Regis Prograis at 140 pounds, and then he loses like that to Ryan Garcia. It's unfortunate, but that's why Teofimo Lopez kind of edges it out for me against Devin Haney right now because of the way he lost to Ryan Garcia. It's unfortunate, but I would love to see Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney fight at some point. I think that's a blockbuster fight. But Bryan, great list. We had some of the same names, a couple of names that were not on our list. But for the most part, I think we agreed that it was very tough to make this list.
Yeah, we're going to reread ours. I'm going to reread mine first and drop comments, drop lists or whatever thoughts on it. We're going to put some comments on the board before we get out of here. But let's recap the list real quick. For me, 10 through 1, Ismael Barroso was 10. 9, Alberto Puello. 8, Regis Prograis. 7, Subriel Matias. 6, Isaac Cruz. 5, Jack Catterall. 4, Liam Paro. Jose Ramirez 3, Devin Haney 2, Teofimo Lopez 1. Others receiving votes: Josh Taylor, Richardson Hitchens, Sandor Martin, Arno Barbosa, and there's a whole bunch of others that are like on the second tier, third tier cut list, but like we don't have to mention every single one this weight class yet.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. Number 10 for me, Josh Taylor. Number 9, Jack Catterall. Number 8, Regis Prograis. Number 7, Arnold Barbosa Jr. Number 6, Jose Ramirez. Number 5, Subriel Matias. Number 4, Liam Paro. Number 3, Isaac Cruz. Number 2, Devin Haney. And number 1, Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez is going to be fighting next weekend.
Yeah.
Or is it? And
so next weekend.
And so we'll get to see him back in the ring, pretty much essentially a tune-up fight. I feel like just staying busy.
Yeah.
Just staying busy in this one. Let's get to some comments really quick, though, before we get up and out of there. Going back to, let's actually go to this comment, and it goes back to the Canelo one, but still. Who would want to watch Berlanga versus Canelo? I think a lot of people would actually be interested in that fight.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would want to see Edgar Berlanga get his ass beat. Look, I'm Puerto Rican, dog. Like I just, you see it behind me in the background, but like it is what it is. Like a lot of people would want to see. I think most people, David. So like most people want David Benavidez, Canelo Alvarez, by and large. I think if you poll people though, Edgar Berlanga may be second on the list. It's gonna be him or Diego Pacheco most likely. David Morrell probably isn't like that level of popular to get enough love in terms of a stylistic boxing match, though. If
Tough
David
fight,
Morrell's still
though.
in the mix, I would love to see that. But if he ain't fighting Dave Benavidez, he ain't fighting no David Morrell. No chance.
No, for sure, for sure. He's not even looking Morel's way. IMPK 13 says number 1 Haney, number 2 Teofimo Lopez, number 3 Jose Ramirez, number 4 Isaac Cruz, and number 5 Jack Catterall. A lot of people have Jack Catterall higher than I do, but I can see why.
What a shock.
I know, right? Let's go back to David.
I like Catterall. I'm excited to use Jack Catterall when Undisputed comes out.
Me too. I'm excited to fight against him. I agree. Josh Taylor should be on the list, but he has to move up in weight, which is interesting. You know what's really interesting is Josh Taylor actually likes to fight on the inside. And you would think that he wants to use his distance, his size and length, but he doesn't.
Kind of missed the boat at welterweight too. He should have jumped up like a couple years ago. Probably around the time he fought Jack Catterall, he probably should have actually moved up to 147.
A lot of injuries too for Josh Taylor. Let's add that. He hasn't been the same, kind of a shell of himself, to be honest with you. T Cole 215. Josh Taylor is not great by no means. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you saying that.
Currently, sure. Before, yeah, but we also were both kind of like, yo, is he like undisputed champion level good? But Josh Taylor, massive respect. Hopefully he gets healthy and fights again.
I can't tell you how mad I was during that Jose Ramirez fight. I could not believe that fight. Nerd Ramirez is shot, in my opinion. I don't think so. I didn't like the last fight because I thought he would get the stoppage, and that's why I had him lower. Because if we did this list before that fight, easily on my top 5. I think you know that if you watch the show, how much I talk about Jose Ramirez. So it's just I'm glad that he's back, and hopefully he's going to keep busy.
Barthelomew's good. I thought it was a good performance.
It's a tough list to make. Obviously, IMPK 13 again. If anybody is shot, it's Taylor. Lobby CDQ says I always had Teo
KOing.
KOing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Knocking out Haney.
I think that happens too. Like if I was supposed to place a bet today, I would place a bet on Teofimo Lopez knocking out Devin Haney.
I probably would place a bet on the fight not actually happening.
It should happen though.
I hope it does. I just I hope it does, but we'll see. I mean, ultimately, Teofimo Lopez is fighting Steve Claggett next week, and hopefully that's a fight that leads to something bigger. Teofimo Lopez is already fighting for the second time this year. It'd be awesome to see him get right back in the ring because
December.
I think we're probably expecting a knockout there, although his opponent's only been stopped one time. But it'd be nice to see Teofimo Lopez back in the ring December, Heisman night, bring that back, do it in New York. Put Xander Zayas and Bruce Carrington on the card, bring out Richard Torres Jr. Like you can make it a whole thing, right? But I think him fighting again will be big this year. And it can get fighter of the year consideration if he were to wipe out Claggett and then has a big time fight later this year against one of these guys on this top 10 list or somebody really credible and then beats them as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how else the 140-pound division shifts, what fights we're going to get in the second half of the year. By the way, drop your comments. Let us know who's on your top 10 list, your top 5 list for the 140-pound division. And if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Bryan, any final thoughts before we get up and out of here?
You'll be hearing from us again next week. We are planning a post-fight live for sure after Teofimo Lopez fights and after Bam Rodriguez fights.
Ooh, can't wait for
God, whew, that fight.
El Gallo and Bam? Come on, sign me up.
Yeah, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll do a preview leading up to that as well. There's some good fights, though, coming up even this week. Rafael Espinoza, I think that's the only card of note. But Troy Isley, who's been on the show, is fighting a fellow undefeated middleweight.
Should be good. I love it when they put Martinez. Undefeated. Yeah. So I love that. That's a tough fight.
Apparently they don't like each other either. So I'm come on. I
gotta root for my boy Troy though. He's been on the show. So that should be a good fight. Remember to follow us at TheMandatory TKO. Also hit that like and subscribe button and enjoy the fight this weekend.